Welcome to yet another episode of 254 YPC. Today we are shifting the focus slightly and moving from what we usually do, where we explore a particular policy issue and discuss some of the gaps and potentially some of the solutions to those problems, to actually looking at people who are making big steps in policy spaces. And we have chosen to start this series, which will actually focus on profiling change makers in various sectors, with interviewing Mr. Muleka, who's the managing director, Science TV. I'll give him an opportunity to introduce himself since you already know me.
My name is Luke Kizito Ojiambo Muleka, the founder and managing director of Science Media Kenya Limited. Science Media Kenya Limited is a company or an organization that propagates socio-economic, political, and talent development of persons with disabilities. We have two products that work around that area. Product number one is Science TV, which is a TV station broadcasting in sign language with voice as an override. And the most people who host shows or bring shows on Science TV are actually persons with disabilities. Then number two, we have Assistol, an app that we launched as a response to COVID-19, whereby we realized that persons with disabilities, and especially the deaf, will require interpretation services. But if the interpreter gets into the isolation room, that is our thinking, they will be dressed in PPEs, the hands will be gloved, and the faces will be masked. And you know that deaf people really want to see the signing using the hands and also the impressions on the face. So we realize that when we remove an interpreter and out of the room and bring the interpreter virtually, it will be really a good assistance to the person with disability, and that is the deaf. That's why we decided to come up with an app that should be able to have interpreters online, where it will be accessed. And in the COVID space, we were doing that pro bono, but we want to develop it into a commercial viable product and venture. Thank you very much, Samantha.
Thanks for the comprehensive introduction. So I'd like, because I also know that you're an advocate for issues related to persons with disabilities, and considering also the angle that we generally take around discussing public policy, I'd like you to break down for us what policies exist related to persons with disabilities, and also what an enabling environment from a policy perspective would look like.
Thank you. I would say that Kenya, we've done a lot of strides around disability issues, and I just want to remind you that the inaugural Global Disability Summit that was held in 2018, actually, the Kenyan government, together with the UK government, co-hosted this event that happened in London. So that means that in terms of policy and in terms of countries that have actually done great strides around bringing an enabling environment, Kenya has undertaken great strides in that aspect. Number one, Kenya is a signatory to the Conventions on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, that is the CRPD. Number two, Kenya has a robust constitution that actually takes care of persons with disabilities, and various articles, and if I will touch Article 54 of the constitution, that actually brought even live to the inclusion of sign language as our third language in the country, and that has gone to a greater length to actually bring out the aspect of non-discrimination of persons with disabilities, irrespective of how they are in their society. So you realize that brings and pumps a lot of life into policy and every organization in terms of how it carries around inclusion and persons with disabilities. We have also the Disability Act 2003 that is actually going through some amendments to just make it align it with the 2010 Constitution. So you realize that the country in itself and the policy with regard to legal framework is actually robust, and it supports persons with disabilities. And we'll say that the country and like a demand that employment, both in the public and private sector, 5% of the employees should be persons with disabilities, albeit slowly, but to realize that the framework is there. So it is really an enabling environment, which I would say that enables persons with disability to participate effectively in the development of the country without being left out and being left behind.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'd say that at least from a policy perspective, what's left is actually implementation and following through of whatever has been put in place.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I know we've also had a lot of conversations around this. What physical and virtual safe spaces would look like for persons with disabilities, and like even as early as, or rather as recent as before this conversation, we were having a discussion on safe spaces. So I think it would be important for you to touch on that as well, so that the audience is also aware of some of those requirements.
Good. I would say that the safe spaces, I will start with the structural safe spaces. And when I'm talking about disability, I normally talk about safe spaces in a certain context. I would say the legal safe spaces, attitudinal safe spaces, infrastructural safe spaces, and other spaces that come in, but those are the major ones that I normally look at. So if you're looking at I will go to the infrastructural safe spaces, and this includes the built environment or the built environment, whereby we have a building code that we actually, people also have started to discuss that provided that a lift or any building that has five floors is where you can introduce a lift. So you realize that this was actually barring a lot of persons with disabilities. But I would want to commend Kenyans and the engineers that they decided that even if the code is not repealed or is not changed, they have gone ahead and ensured that most buildings have ramps, most buildings have lifts from as low as even 0 floor or ground floor or even the basements. And what has happened is also the same thing is being seen in regard to clamor for having the modern roads that are being constructed, even though the roads that we have will not be so much accommodating to persons with disabilities. When we look at those are using wheelchairs, and also those that are even the visually impaired persons. So you realize that those are the safe spaces that I would say that in the infrastructure, we should in the infrastructural space, we should be looking at and ensuring that they comply and they're accommodating persons with disability. Attitudinal safe spaces, you'll realize that all these policies will be there, but what is the attitude of the people who are supposed to implement them? If the attitude is right, then it will just automatically come in. Like I will say that I'm commending so much our engineers who decided that even if it's not there, let's start rethinking about the persons with disabilities, and even if the building code has not been repealed, to ensure that all these things are in, but the engineers have gone a step ahead. We want the same attitudinal safe spaces to come in to ensure that this is actually being done. Then we look at the legal safe spaces, as you talk about. So out of these legal safe spaces, whereby there is a lot of clamor that we should have this included in our policy documents and the parliamentary legislations, and also the government as a whole, to have this thing working ahead. You realize that those things are there, but if the legal space again is not there, you'll find that this becomes difficult. Then we go to the next space, I will say, that has been created, albeit as a blessing in disguise, but COVID brought in a space that I will say that has been able to flatten some of these challenges. Persons with disabilities have not been able to access job opportunities because the employer will be thinking, how will this guy get to work? And that, but now COVID has brought in that everyone is working at home. Yeah. So a person with disability will actually get out of their bedroom and actually get to the office in the sitting room. Or even if it means that they have to work from the bedroom, they'll work from the bedroom. So I would say that the safe spaces that have been brought by not the inability for them to navigate the transportation system, and now just by them working around in their homes, it's something that we should actually, quote unquote, say that COVID has brought, and it has actually accelerated now the question that, are we going to leave persons with disability unemployed, or are we going to bring them on board simply because everybody is now working from home?
Yeah.
And I know Samantha also working from home.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I think also just, I know the platform on which Assistol is also like founded is
Yes.
basically around creating safe, both physical but also virtual spaces.
Yes.
So I think sometimes there's sort of an unintentional sidelining of persons with disabilities when we are doing things online, when we are using social media as a platform, when we are using things like this, vlogging as a platform. So I'd like to hear some of your thoughts around creating an enabling environment from that perspective, considering a lot of things have shifted to an online space.
And I'm just thinking that before this podcast goes on air, it will have sign language interpretation.
Yeah.
Because you realize that those are the things that we tend to forget.
Yes.
And just factor out persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
Yes, very many people, people have come up with applications, like as you said, Assistol. Initially it was that an interpreter must be physical. Yeah. But the jump into the physical and virtual space, and even some of these Zoom meetings happening and interpreters are there, you realize now we've started shifting. The other thing that we've been talking about is the accessibility through the web. You realize that some of our websites that we are constructing are actually inaccessible, because you realize that there will be a person who has, low vision. So there is a way you should design your web so that it actually brings out the large fonts, and these people are able to access. If it is let me say, even a service charter on your website, or this is for both private and public institutions, make this service charter accessible in a manner that it should have voice, it should have sign language, and it should also have the insertions. That is they call them what? The running subtitles, yes, the subtitles, so that it becomes very easy for someone to choose how they're going to access. But you realize that will help now in choosing, because you realize that choice becomes a very important thing, even for persons with disabilities. So that we are not boxed, or they are not boxed in a certain way of thinking, but they have choice. That is some of the things that the virtual space is bringing. And to me, it becomes a thumbs up that has been brought and accelerated by the COVID-19, that now people are thinking not just outside the box, but are now thinking without the box.
Yeah, so like, I think I want to jump onto something else, and again, something I believe that you're very strong at, and on account of some of the persons with disabilities that have also interacted with, I think there are a lot of very powerful persons with disabilities, but they've only gotten to that point because they were given an opportunity to begin with.
Yes.
I think I'd like you to expound a bit on what empowerment of persons with disabilities looks like, and what sustainable employment for them looks like, because I know you've actually been able to, through Science TV and Assistol, actually employ quite a number of persons with disabilities and, yeah, uplift them.
I believe in the mantra of inclusion through participation. Some people are just talking about inclusion, but not give opportunity to participate. Because if you just clamor, include me, we are including, but we are not encouraging participation, then that becomes. So what happened is, like in the media space, in the organization that I run, that is our flagship project, which is Science TV. We realized that most PWDs were not trained in media. So what I did is, first of all, I went to your attitude. I would say my interviewing was your attitude, and how talented you are. Then from there, we were able to get the person on board and enable them to get to know, first of all, some of the media laws, probably, and the media policies. Then from there, we were able to get now partnership from people like the Media Council of Kenya to train now our staff who are persons with disabilities in media, to have them accredited journalists. And this is something that a partnership that. So what I would say is, had we not gone ahead and included this person and made them participate, the Media Council would not have come on board to train them now. So I'm a believer of inclusion through participation. Don't just talk about including, but make the person participate. And that, in a way, it enables now the wheel of leaving no one behind to be accelerated and to move very fast. So that is what I've done in my own space as an employer, albeit at a very low level of employment, but I would say that majority of my employees percentage-wise are persons with disabilities. So 60%, and to me that has been the driver of participation that will now result in proper inclusion practically.
Yeah. So, Luke, I want you to tell us a bit about, and obviously considering that I know a lot of youth will be watching this channel as well, and I know this is something that they would want to hear before we jump into something that I also think people would be very interested to hear, is like, what does, as a young person, because I know you founded Science TV like when you were pretty young, what does building a brand and a business look like? And what does building a sustainable brand and a business look like?
Yes, I've been in various conversations and talking to very many young people on, first of all, setting out. I would say that most of them, they will do the reverse. They will start with 95% of their ask would be money. And I normally tell them that money is actually 5%. Yourself, giving this initiative that you have good timing should form 95% of your starting out. Most people, yes, there is a side hustle, but you realize that for this side hustle even to take off, it really requires yourself. Yes, and you should decide to know. You should decide and understand, what exactly do I want to do? So this is how I narrow it down. Number one, what problem are you solving? What solution have you brought on board? The innovation that you've brought on board. Then, is it sustainable and can it be scaled? Those five, once someone is able to answer those 5 questions about problem, solution, innovation, then sustainability, then we go to scale, because scale will come now where that's where you need money. But all this one, the problem, you don't need money to identify the problem. You don't need money to define a solution. You don't need money, probably very little money, just to come up with the innovation. Then you don't need money to talk about, to look at how sustainable this, but at scale is where you require money. So you realize that we are like turning the funnel upside down, whereby you put money as a now. Actually, you want to scale before even coming up with a problem. That is the thing that I've seen that is inhibiting a lot of the youth in the society and the community to grow. Then there is what I would say that there is a model that I normally tell the youth to avoid, and the model is the business model of existence of a problem. Let us try, because I believe that as long as you are solving a problem, you'll always have customers. If you're solving a problem, you'll always have a customer. But some of them are running up with this issue of the business model is the existence of a problem. That means that people will always look at you with some level of suspicion, because if you are making the problem to continue, then you are not solving any problem. So you realize that your customers actually get limited, because people are looking at how are you, and you know that the whole globe is actually aligned towards the Sustainable Development Goals, 2030, Vision 2030. Even the government of Kenya has that, because 2030 is where we are going to say, where did we start from 2015, the 15 years? Where did we start after the Millennium Development Goals? Where are we? And now, what is the pickup from what we've been able to achieve for the last 15 years? So I would say that let the youth know that not to turn the funnel down, that money is the problem. Money has never been a problem. Start with defining your problem so well. solution will come out of it. So innovation, sustainability, scale will be the last thing. And someone will actually, you will be surprised, someone telling you that we've seen what you have been doing, we are credible now. Because of your credibility, we are pumping in $1 million to whatever you are doing to scale. Not to define the problem. No one will ever pump in money to define
To
the
define
problem.
a problem.
No. They will only come in to scale your solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So we want to like just wrap up by going into the actual change maker section of this entire interview. And so I want to look to, first of all, speak to your accomplishments over the years.
Yeah.
I think it's also enlightening to understand some of the hurdles you faced along the way as you were pursuing various opportunities and things like that, and how you navigated them.
Yes.
But just basically profile some of your accomplishments with Science TV over the years, or what you consider accomplishments.
Yes, I would say that Science TV as a brand has already cut its own niche, both at the local scene and the international. I would say that Science TV locally has been able to win various accolades, like is the SDG ambassador promoted by ActionAid. Science TV won the Youth Connect Africa in the innovation space that was held in Rwanda, Kigali in Rwanda. Science TV was able also to be ranked as 50 top-ranked solutions by the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network. That was in 2019. And as Science TV was able to be awarded at the Zero Awards in Vienna on innovation towards persons with disabilities. Actually, last week we received a trophy from United Nations Action Campaign in Bonn, Germany, in which again we won. So you realize that people are seeing our convergence towards one, inclusion, bringing persons with disabilities, and all that. Then you realize that they are able now to realize what you are doing and really appreciate Science TV. And that has been brought up not because we had a lot of money, but we believed in the process. We identified a problem, came up with a solution, and now came up with a sustainable model. So you realize that now we are expecting, probably later on someone will tell us now, oh guys, you're doing this and it's a very nice thing. We want to scale. And you'll realize at that point that's when we impact investors, because not every investor just want to see return on investment in terms of profits. But some of them are looking at return on investment in terms of social profits. What impact have you created as an organization? Some of them are interested in that, but we get ourselves in the silos of trying to think that it's only money that supports, but that impact that you create, so many people are looking at it differently as opposed to how much profit you are actually creating from the organization. So I would say that that is some of the accolades that Science TV has been able to achieve. And I would say that we also partnering with the government of Kenya in various aspects, drive policy, contribute to policy change, and being, of course, our employers of persons with disabilities a big plus. And we've also been able to champion, I would say, the creation, the formation of Kenya Business Disability Network, in which are members with some of the companies like Safaricom, EABL, Unilever, and Coca-Cola. So you realize that as we are doing this, we are actually sending out what we call best practices in the industry and in the sector, that's the disability sector, in which we are saying that persons with disabilities engagement is not a bad idea, because you will never go at a loss simply because you are employing persons with disabilities or you are supporting persons with disability. Why? Because the previous engagements have been we are going to, what I say, that we are advocating for inclusion but not allowing them to participate. And remember, PWD say in their own space that nothing for us without us. So they've been saying this, but people practically putting this into practice have been an issue. But now this is what we've come, and we want to make sure that it actually works. That is what we want to do as Science TV. And going forward, I would think that we are in the space whereby, having been in operation since 2017, this is our 5th year, and we are saying that we are going now to push this agenda to the next level.
And it would be interesting also, like from a practical standpoint, look, we know like nothing this big is accomplished overnight. It doesn't go without challenges. It would be interesting to hear about some of your challenges and how you navigate them, because we want to shift the narrative from complaining that everything is a problem to actually being problem solvers, as you've sort of articulated earlier.
Yes, challenges will always be there. And first of all, even shaping that problem to understand what the problem is, it's a challenge in
Yeah.
itself. But the ability to offer yourself, money will always be a challenge. You'll never have enough money to solve anything. But let people not, let the youth and people who want to step in the leadership space to wait for the million magic for them to make any change, because
Yeah.
it will never come. Most people are waiting for this magic moment. There's never a magic moment. It's
Yeah.
always those small blocks you are building.
Yeah.
One block builds to the other, results to the other block, and that is how you accomplish.
Yeah.
I would say, even if it's something big, and someone said that an elephant, you can't eat an elephant the
In
whole of
one
it. You have
day.
to cut piece by piece for
Yeah.
you to eat a big elephant. So I would say that the youth, first of all, should identify the problem, then come out, offer yourself as the problem solver by defining your solution very well. Then you'll find that we are able now, we people in this space, we are able, first of all, to offer a mentorship, a leadership. We've been there, we've been doing this for a couple of years now. I believe that whoever is starting can actually learn best practices from us, and we're able to help them out. And I'm welcoming anybody who feels that they have this idea, because one of the things I would say I pride myself in is execution. I'm able to help you to, first of all, just define that problem and give it a total different angle, probably from what you are thinking. So I would say that whoever is thinking that they have something, I offer myself up for mentorship opportunity, just to help define the problem and come up with a solution based on the problem. That's something that I can actually offer some hours or some minutes in my week and just help. Yeah.